Man, I don't want to inundate you with questions, but it's this is our first time really talking, and sometimes I know what a lot of my friends and I talk about is that look, I am independent, and Charlemagne is a friend of mine. Karen Kinney, who kind of works with us both, is our light, and we had conversations all the time about the Democratic Party and how they've been able to utilize the black vote in a lot of ways. I think a lot of black people felt let down. Um, is there a chance for a third party that potentially could be established one day, AY? And maybe is there a way, how would you filter out having better candidates? I'm not saying that our candidates that we have, Joe Biden is lacking. That's a whole other conversation that I'm not sure we can even get into that. But is that feasible?
So the mechanics of a third party are very, very difficult, Jay. If you look at it, like if someone ran as an independent, I actually talked to Mark Cuban about this because he was looking at a presidential run. And he's a smart guy, a savvy guy, and he dug in and found the same thing I did about the mechanics. Is like running right now as a third party is a great way to help someone else win. It's not going to result in your victory. And that's the reality right now that I think we need to change, because I think the two-party duopoly is destroying us in some ways. I think there are many people who do not feel like either party speaks for them. Right now, people who identify as independents, which I think you may identify as, outnumber either Democrats or Republicans by the numbers. But there isn't a party for you, so you're just like, all right, I guess I'm going to choose one of these two. And so the big reform that would help us advance politically is ranked choice voting, where if you could just say, look, here are a few people I like Yang first, and then Joe second, and then Elizabeth Warren third, or whatever the list is, and then people wouldn't feel like they were forced to vote for a particular person. People wouldn't feel like they were ever going to waste their vote, and then you could have people's true preferences get laid out, and it would make politicians much more responsive and politics much more dynamic, because you'd wind up with like a more parliamentary system where you'd have splinter parties that then had like a degree of support. So if you had ranked choice voting, then you could potentially have more parties. But the way it's set up right now with just this one vote, use it or lose it, or not, it's called like first to the post, like first to 51% is the technical term for our current voting system. Is very, very hard for an independent party right now. And that's just the way our system's set up, which is not deliberate. Like the Constitution has zero language about, oh, there are going to be two political parties. Like, and there were points in the past where there were multiple political parties. Like there were major parties that now don't even exist, like the Whigs. No one even like fucking thinks about the Whigs, but if you like rewound, like that was like a big deal. So that there's a need for dynamism in our political system, but it's unclear where that comes from. And there are a lot of people like you, and maybe Charlemagne and maybe others are looking up saying, like, we need like a better system than this. Like I went through the Democratic nomination process, and like on one level, I really appreciated the fact that, I was included in stuff, and like had in some ways like a fair shot. But there were other times where it was like, man, like this process is really not designed for someone to come in from outside. The fear, Jay, is that DC right now is on a 30-year lag time behind the rest of the country. And we don't have 30 years to wait. And that's just the situation we're in, where if someone like me wanted to try and make changes in the Democratic Party, it would take a significant amount of time. And the question is whether we have that much time.
I mean, yeah, that is the question. So looking at the reality of the situation, I mean, is Joe Biden going to have a black woman with him to be the vice president of the United States? Is that the most suitable? Is that Kamala Harris? Who do you think is the most suitable candidate for that?
If you ask me, is Joe going to have a black woman running mate, I would guess that yes, he will. And then there are several top candidates for that. Kamala, I know, and consider her a friend. I don't know some of the other people that are in the running, but I think that's what you'll see. And I believe that Joe's going to win. I think that Trump is alienating a lot of people that were, like that voted for him and were like, pretty much they were justifying their continued support for him based upon their 401k, stock market, and jobs. They were like, oh, he's doing a great job with the economy. And that argument's not going to work for many, many people this time because, they're just going to look around the town and be like, like the bar is half empty, the rental car agencies like half occupied, it's not a good look for him.
Well, it's interesting because every morning you wake up, you watch a lot of shows, and I watch everything from MSNBC to Fox to I listen to a ton of different networks to try to get alternate opinions so I can come to my own assessment. But it's like, on one end, you hear every morning like this daunting thing, like, unemployment, and numbers are astronomical. And then on another, you hear, well, the stock market is up, right? Even though the two don't really correlate. Like, is the stock market being up, is that sustainable? Does that help Donald Trump better because the economy is in that place?
Yeah, I mean, it's marginally helpful for Donald Trump because people at least feel like their stock portfolios are going up. But right now, the problem is that stock prices and unemployment now have no relationship at all. Like, if you fire a lot of people, your stock price probably goes up because they're like, oh, good, you got rid of people. So the issue is whether more people own stock or have jobs, and it's many, many, many more people have jobs than own stock. So like the fact that the employment picture is really bleak is going to impact a lot of people very, very harshly and negatively. And then there's going to be a relatively small percentage of Americans who are just staring at the stock price and their jobs are fine. And, that describes you and me, obviously, but it does not describe the majority of Americans. About half of Americans own no stock, so they don't care about stock market prices. And the top 20% of Americans own 92% of the stock portfolio. So for better or for worse, Jay, the people that you hang out with that own a lot of stock are in the top 20% of the U.S. population, and which is not shocking because you are who you are, and you're hanging out with people who work at ESPN or athletes or whatnot. It's like, I mean, obviously they have like a freaking financial
I am not there. I am not there. Yeah. I witnessed that from afar. I'm like, oh, you're making how much a year? Interesting. Okay, not there.
So yeah, the stock market prices and jobs are heading in opposite directions, and the jobs are going to hurt more people than the stock market prices are going to help.